question goes to Steve. We'll start this next round. It's a hardball question again. As a sheriff, you have to deal with a lot of statistics regarding crime. So, as a candidate, can you give me a brief summary of the general crime statistics in Nassau County, such as murders, assaults, DUIs, thefts, etc.?
Really, I don't have.
What you know.
The statistics, you got to understand how they're come about. They break down into individual, what we call UCR codes. Sheriff can play with them codes and come up with any type of statistic he wants. And so you would never know if robbery's up or violent crime's up or domestic violence is down and all that, because the way it's reported to in an agency and the way it gets put on a UCR, which is Uniform Crime Reporting. But I don't know them because they're hard to get. Anything is hard to get from the sheriff's office. Thank you.
Neither do I have the statistical data of the particular crimes that you're asking for. I have posed the question to the sheriff and to the chief, and both of them have told me that crime has pretty much been on a flat line for about the last 4 years. I've never inquired as to each individual crime, though.
If you look at crime statistics nationwide, they are going down across our country. You look at the state of Florida, crime statistics are going down. Nassau County, you look at crime statistics over the last several years, they've been going down slightly. But certainly we want to make sure we're reporting them correctly, because how do you know if you're making a difference in your community if you're not reporting the crime correctly? And that's what I pledge, report everything. So how do we know if we're making a difference or not if we don't report everything? So it's very important to do that, and that's what I'll do.
Pretty much like they said, you can make the numbers lie. You can make them lie to make you look good, which that might be happening. But any way you look at it, you can't really go by exactly the statistics. But if you also look at it, burglary, theft, and narcotics, which all run hand to hand, are in the county, and that's probably your top 3 in the county that we need to work on to get under control. Get the statistics or stats down, however you want to grade it, look at it, mark it down. Get it down, because that will help the community. And the stats, like I said, you can just make them lie or make them look good, whatever it needs to be to make you look good.
All right, Chris. What's your knowledge of the meth lab problems in Nassau County, and what would you do to counter it?
Well, as a sheriff, the first thing I would do is I'd go mend fences with the Drug Enforcement Administration in Jacksonville. Fernandina Beach has the privilege of having a joint task force with them, and they do a fantastic job within the jurisdiction that they can get in Nassau County. So I'm very aware that there are some meth lab problems. The problem is I don't think we have the resources needed right now to deal with them. We need to mend fences with the DEA. We need to get involved in these joint task force with the city police department, with the DEA, so we can all work together to get rid of these problems.
Yeah.
As I said before, certainly working with other agencies, federal, state, and local, on problems of your community. Certainly meth labs, we read about them more today. They seem to be more prevalent. They're very explosive. The ingredients are easy to get. You just go to the grocery store and get what you need, go home and cook them. And they're very volatile. And the problem is when you locate these meth labs, and you can look at people and tell they're on meth, believe me. I've seen them for a long time. But the problem is the cleanup. It's very expensive to clean up these meth labs. And that's the problem. A lot of agencies don't want to touch it because of the cost. But it affects our community, and we need to do anything we can to make sure we rid our community of those issues.
First thing we need to do is get the employees trained on how to recognize meth labs. what to look for in meth labs, and not only that, but how to handle them once they go into a meth lab. Meth lab is extremely flammable. You can't just run in there and take it over. And also, a lot of the input needs to come from the community. Everybody knows that we're spread thin, but if we can educate the community on what to look for, simple things, there's 4 major components that it takes to make meth. If we can educate the community to look out for them, to give us tips, also know what to smell for, and then after we get them trained, work well with the other people, just like the DEA, everybody gets involved, we can nip it in the bud.
While I was in narcotics, we went off 107, County Road 107 down there and busted a big meth lab. I had no breathing equipment. I had no equipment at all. For about a week or so, I had headaches and nausea and all this because that's what's going to happen. At that time, the DEA, they contracted with a service to come and clean it up. But now it's up to the local government, the local agency to clean up the meth labs. But meth labs are about double that size right now. And, you know, they can be carried in a backpack, carried in the front seat of a vehicle. I mean, they show up anywhere. Deerwood Village down there in Jacksonville, real popular gated community, had a big meth lab there. It's not, you know, our neighborhoods, you know, it's not just because it's a rundown neighborhood that's got a meth lab. It can be anywhere. But citizen involvement is what we need to find these things. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Leeper. As we all know, when we take money from federal and state governments, there's usually an expectation on their part. Would you accept grant money from federal and state governments for such things as equipment or training? And if yes, what questions would you ask first before accepting the grant?
With any grant you receive, there are some stipulations that come with those grants. Some are a little more stricter than others. Certainly you want to know that ahead of time before you take that equipment, but you don't want to just get grants because they're easy to get. I mean, if it's not something your department really needs or your community really needs, there's no reason for you to get it. We don't need toys. We need tools. And if it's a tool that'll make us do our job better, make us do our job more efficient, more effective, then I'm certainly going to look at that. But I'm not going to just accept a grant because it's available.
I would look into the grant and see if we really need it. And the reason why a grant would actually be a good starter to get your foot in the door. With a grant, it comes from taxpayers. It's a grant money from the federal government. By doing that, somebody's paying for it. It's not free. We still pay taxes. We're still coming out of our budget. We just get a tax break as far as we don't have to foot the whole bill. Then, after the grant runs out, a lot of the agencies are left with the burden of how are they going to fill that position. Once again, you have to go back to the county commissioners, ask for a budget increase, or cut something, or move somebody around. So it would all depend on if we need it in the long term, to where we need to foot that bill in the long term. The grant would help us get it started, which would, like I said, ease the burden.
Taking federal grants oftentimes comes with strings attached. I have seen that time and time again. We have a lot of equipment sitting on the sheriff's office that has strings attached to it. We have to be careful what those strings are, because we don't need to tie our hands with the federal government. We have to make sure that we can work as a sheriff's office and not be led by them. Thank you.
I agree, there are a lot of strings attached with several federal grants, but it's as simple as research and educate yourself. If it comes with strings that are attached that you and your administration can't live with, don't apply for it. There's plenty of grants out there you can look at, find the ones that suit your department and the ones that you can live with, and those are the ones that you try and get.